trailer parked in front of it. The river was shallow because it was late fall and water was at a premium, and it wasn't unusual for guides to miscalculate and hit a rock. But when he heard a series of mishaps, pock, 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 rock, 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 he glanced up from his knot. The white fiberglass drift boat was coming right at him, sideways, bumping along the river rocks in a shallow current. No one was at the oars. In fact, no one seemed to be in the boat at all. Farkas squinted and cursed. If the boat continued on its path, it would hit him, maybe knock him right off his feet. Farkas couldn't swim, and if his waders filled with water and he was sucked into the deep pool under the bridge. He uneasily shuffled a few steps back. The river rocks were slick and the current pushed steadily at his legs. The boat kept coming and seemed to pick up speed. He looked around at the bank, then at the bridge, hoping someone would be there to help. But no one was there. At the last second, before the boat hit him from the side, Farkas cursed again and managed to turn toward it and brace himself with both feet. His fly rod dropped into the water at his side as he reached out with both hands. "God damn it!" he cried out, to grasp the gunwales of the oncoming boat and stop its momentum. The boat thumped heavily against his palms and he felt the soles of his boots slip, and he was pushed a few feet backward. Somehow, though, his right boot wedged between two heavy rocks and stopped fast. So did the boat, although he could feel the pressure of it building, wanting to knock him down. He was sick about his lost fly rod and thought that if nothing else, he could wrestle the boat to shore and sell it for $3 or $4 grand, because he sure as hell wasn't going to return it to the idiot who let it get away from him in the first place. As he stood there in the river, straining against the pressure, he realized it was harder work than it should have been. There was real weight inside the boat, but he was at an angle, bent forward with his head down and his arms straining and outstretched, so he couldn't rise up and look inside without losing his balance and his footing. Over the next 10 minutes, muscles trembling, he worked the boat downstream and closer to the bank. Finally, he stepped into a back eddy of calmer water with a sandy bottom and pulled the boat into it as well. Sweat coursed down his neck and his thigh muscles twitched with pain. Then he looked over the gunwale into the bottom of the boat and said, "Jesus Christ." He'd never seen so much blood. Chapter 1. The evening before. Nate Romanowski approached the stand of willows from the north with a grin set to his face and a falcon on his fist. Something was going to die. It was an hour until dusk in the foothills of the Bighorn Mountains, near the North Fork of the 12 Sleep River. Storm clouds that had scudded across the big sky all day now bunched to the southeast as if they'd been herded, and they squeezed out intermittent waves of snow pellets that rattled across the dry grass and shivered the dead leaves. A slight breeze hung low to the ground and ferried both the scent of sage and the watery smell of the river through the lowland brush. The peregrine falcon was blinded with a leather hood topped by a stiff white bristle of pronghorn antelope hair. The bird sat still and upright, secured to the falconer's hand by thin leather jesses tied to its talons and looped through his gloved fingers. The falcon, Nate thought, was still and regal and hungry. Tightly packed natural explosives encased by feathers, just waiting for a fuse to be lit. Although slightly less than 24 inches tall, the female he held once released was the fastest species on the planet, capable of speeds during its hunting dive of more than 200 miles an hour. When it balled its talons and struck a bird in flight with that velocity, the result was a concussive explosion of blood, bones, and feathers that still took Nate's breath away. The falcon, like all his raptors over the years, had no name, and every time he released one to hunt, there was a chance she would fly.